Good morning. I will go again because apparently I was speaking and not being heard. Let me take some acknowledgements. The Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Mrs. Sancia Bennett Templar, Permanent Secretary also in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Mr. Simon Roberts, Chairman of JANAC's Accreditation Council. Ms. Sharon May Shirley, CEO of the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation. Ms. Casita Green, Director of Strategic Planning, Business Development and Promotions with the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation. Our expert panelists, who you'll be hearing from a little later in this discourse. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us across social media platforms, both in Jamaica and in the diaspora. Good morning. It is a rainy morning in Kingston, and I think it is a good time for things to grow, as we this morning will be having a very vibrant and important discussion surrounding Jamaica's cannabis industry. This discussion is being brought to you in observance of World Accreditation Day, which comes up on the 9th of June. And so the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, with its partners, the International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation, the International Accreditation Forum, and also our parent ministry, the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, started fit for us to have this very important discussion at this time. The theme for World Accreditation Day is accreditation, supporting the development of the Sustainable Development Goals. And this conversation is related to goal number 9 in industry, investment, and in industry and investment. So at this time, I'm going to be turning over to the chairman of JANAC's Accreditation Council, Mr. Simon Roberts, who will be coming with greetings. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, Darren. Thank you very much. Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State, Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Mrs. Sancia Bennett Templar, Permanent Secretary of that ministry. Mrs. Sharon May Shirley, our amazing CEO of Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation. Other members, of course, of the JANAC Accreditation Council. Our expert panelists, Levon Flynn, Chairman of the Cannabis Licensing Authority. Mrs. Diane Edwards, President of the Jamaica Promotions Corporation. Mr. Jason Hensel, who is Vice President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. Mr. Richard Dickey Crawford, President of the Ganja Growers and Producers Association of Jamaica. Of course, other specially invited guests, JANAC and MIIC team members, our partners, members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to today's virtual town hall organized by the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation to explore the impact of accreditation and innovation in transforming Jamaica's cannabis industry. This webinar was organized within the context of World Accreditation 2021, placing thematic focus on the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Since its establishment in March of 2007 as the Jamaica National Accreditation Body of Jamaica, JANAC, which is an agency of the Ministry of Industry, excuse me, Investment and Commerce, is proud of its reputation of excellence, serving Jamaica and the Caribbean as the only internationally recognized accreditation body in the English-speaking Caribbean and signatory to the ILAC Mutual Recognition Arrangements, or MRAs. The ILAC MRA increases the acceptance of products across national borders and eliminates the need for additional testing and or inspection of imports and exports, thus reducing technical barriers to trade. In this way, the ILAC MRA promotes international trade and the free trade goal of accredited once, accepted everywhere, which can be realized. This offers significant potential for growth for industry and commerce. I salute the management and staff of JANAC for their unwavering commitment to executing the agency's mission of providing internationally recognized accreditation services for labs, inspection and certification bodies, and to facilitate market access, enhance competitiveness, and consumer well-being through improved stakeholder confidence in the quality and integrity of goods and services. Accreditation services provided by JANAC help to safeguard consumer health and well-being and confirm the competence and the reliability of laboratory testing, inspection, and certification services on which sectors such as healthcare, food, environmental management, energy, tourism, construction, horse racing, and other industries depend. Today, as we highlight the growth potential for Jamaica's cannabis industry, public and private sector businesses are encouraged to tap into JANAC's accreditation services to increase the overall competitiveness of this industry and to provide confidence to the systems and processes used to advance the research, manufacture, packaging, and sale of medicinal marijuana and other cannabis products in the marketplace. The theme accreditation, supporting the achievement of sustainable development goals, which will be the focus of our World Accreditation Day celebrations on June 9th, comes at a critical time in our history. JANAC is conscious of our role in helping to frame the local and regional response to quality outcomes, advancing a robust quality infrastructure that confirms competence and provides confidence in the marketplace. We understand that now more than ever, accreditation, innovation, technology, science, and accredited conformity assessment services are the kingpins for small island development states in the Caribbean to achieve quality-led, market-driven, resilient, and sustainable societies and economies. As a sidebar, I'd like to note that I have a daughter who actually works in the cannabis industry overseas in the whole area of certification and accreditation and conformity assessment. So it's somewhat ironic and to me a bit bemusing that today we have this conference speaking of the cannabis industry when in fact one of my loved ones is actually doing a lot of the work that JANAC oversights but oversees. So again, a very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you, panelists, for taking the time out to being here, for everyone who is taking the time out to participate. We trust that you will gain greater insight into the work of JANAC and also the enabling role of accreditation and in supporting industries. Sit back, relax, enjoy, and please participate as you can during the program. All the best. Handing it back to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Roberts, for those remarks. And at this time, I'm going to be handing over to our CEO, Ms. Sharon May Shirley, who will come with a presentation on JANAC, accreditation, and the cannabis industry. I know we can't applaud physically, but do please make her welcome.
Muted. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State, Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Mrs. Sancia Bennett Templar, Permanent Secretary, MIIC, our Chairman, Mr. Simon Roberts, and of course, our able moderator, Mr. Darren Miller, expert panelists, Mr. Levon Flynn, Chairman of the Cannabis Licensing Authority, Ms. Diane Edwards, President of JAMPRO, Mr. Jason Hensel, Vice President of the PSOJ, Mr. Richard Dickey Crawford, President of the Ganja Growers and Producers Association of Jamaica, other specially invited guests, JANAC and MIIC team members, partners, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation is pleased to be sharing with you in this our inaugural Accredicast Quality Management Series as we highlight the supporting role that the JANAC play in Jamaica's cannabis industry. I invite you to share with me as I take you through a brief presentation. I hope you are seeing my presentation on your screen. Well, give me 1 sec. Let me adjust the screen so that you can see my presentation. Okay. I think you are seeing the screen now. Great. So now I will continue my presentation. Are you seeing? All right. Are you seeing the screen? Well, let me continue. I would have liked for you to see the presentation, but I will not hold up the meeting by waiting on it and sorting out the technical difficulties. So let me continue. JANAC's internationally recognized accreditation programs for laboratory testing and inspection services is an ideal leveraging tool for cannabis testing laboratories and regulators, such as the pre-license inspection processes conducted by the Cannabis Licensing Authority, the CLA, prior to the issuance of cultivator's license, processor's license, retail license, among others, and the Medicinal Cannabis Unit operating out of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica, a catalyst to support the cannabis industry. JANAC stands ready to provide internationally recognized third-party accreditation assessments to serve both the medical and recreational cannabis industry. We are pleased that JANAC, the only internationally recognized accreditation body in the English-speaking Caribbean, is so placed to support the exportation, the growth, and of course, to assure the well-being of the consumers of the products developed locally. As the local and international cannabis industry evolves, the accreditation of testing laboratories to the ISO IEC 17025-2017 standard general requirements for competence of testing and calibration labs is an essential tool to assure stakeholders that cannabis and cannabis-derived products are free from contaminants and are safe for consumption. There are several benefits that accrue from using an accredited testing laboratory. Benefits such as increased confidence in the accuracy and reliability of cannabis testing lab results for the advancement of research and development, product formulation, verification of safety requirements, and much more. The accredited testing laboratory also demonstrates the competence and commitment of accredited testing labs to proper testing procedures and the maintenance of high quality standards. It also confirms the use of adequate equipment, competent personnel, validated test methods that are used throughout the laboratory system. Accreditation is rooted in the recognition and compliance to international best practices and standards that promote global trust in the goods and services that are produced. Accreditation also opens opportunities for businesses, both local and international, to gain competitive advantages and, of course, market access. Building on the success of JANAC over the years, we have a cadre of competent accredited cabs throughout the English-speaking Caribbean. JANAC operates in 8 states in the Caribbean, and we are proud of the quality service that we provide all our constituents. The healthcare sector has been supported by accredited medical testing, producing accurate test results that both patients and physicians can depend on to create the best health outcomes. Our accredited food testing labs and inspection bodies perform tests and inspections on food samples, reducing the threat of foodborne diseases, and of course, ensuring that the quality of the products that are exported to our target market meet the specifications of our buyers. JANAC and our team of experts stand ready to assist the players in the cannabis industry to select the accreditation program that suits their business models. If you are a manufacturer, if you are an exporter, if you are a retailer of cannabis products and or own or operate testing laboratories, accreditation is important to you. Accreditation will help to remove technical barriers to trade and prevent you from incurring additional costs through retesting when your product is shipped to international ports. If your company wants to demonstrate its expertise in conducting scientific research and the development of medicinal cannabis products for your clients in Jamaica and in the rest of the world, accreditation is important to you because accreditation will attest to the competence of your team, and it will also attest to the quality of the product. We want to ensure that persons who are using medicinal cannabis products, they are in fact getting the right dosage amounts, and this can only be assured through the use of competent analytical services provided by accredited conformity assessment bodies, whether they are labs or they are inspection bodies. For inspection bodies, we recognize that accreditation is also an excellent resource for you because it assures that the product that is grown contains the right strains of the marijuana product that is important for the output that you desire. So with that said, I want to encourage you to visit an accredited lab, seek out accredited services, and JANAC is here standing ready to help with the boom in this very important industry. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Miss Shirley, for that very informative presentation, very enlightening. And I'm sure as we go ahead in today's presentations, we will learn a lot more about the role of the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation insofar as this very important industry is concerned. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to also give a very keen listening ear as the State Minister in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce comes forward to make his opening remarks. Do make him welcome.
Good morning. Are you hearing?
Yes, sir. Live and in living colors.
I finally live in colors. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Miss illustrious Sharon May Shirley, CEO of JANAC, our chairman, Mr. Simeon Roberts, PS Templar. I think CTD Parkinson may also be online. Mrs. Casita Green, Director Strategic Planning Development. Um, I would say my new friends, Vice President of PSOJ, Jason Hensel, Dickie Crawford, um, President Diane Edwards, Chairman Flynn, and I hope I'm not leaving out anyone else. All our special invited guests. Good morning. Now, thank you for inviting me, Miss Shirley, to this very important conversation. I believe that we need to have, and possible we should have had a long time. But then nothing is more important than now, and the fact that we are having a conversation now is great. Not only that, so I must really commend Janak. Janak is, I say to most persons that when I just joined the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and the Minister Audley Shaw, which is such a great man, tasked me with the responsibility of commerce, especially the commerce side of the ministry. So of course I had to do my visits to the different agencies. Gladly, I think I've completed all the agency visits, but there's an agency that stood out in my mind, and that was Janak. I mean, it's a wonderful agency amongst all the other agencies who are great, as agencies of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. But I find that Zanak is always forward thinking. And here is it that you have seen the need for a growing and dynamic and multi-billion dollar potential industry. And Janak therefore came forward in offering their accreditation and conformity skills that I believe it is so important if this industry is to grow and develop and to reach the international acclamation that I believe that we are destined to be. So this morning, I must say that I'm going out on in a deep end because I have, like Minister Shaw on most occasions, decided to put away the speech that is given to him. So I have actually put away the speech and decided to have a conversation instead. And what is this conversation about? The topic here is a candid conversation on cannabis. And I emphasize the word candid because it gives us the ability to discuss openly and freely about an industry which has been in the dark for a very long time. And therefore, there's a song that I always listen. I don't know if anybody knows that. I think the older persons amongst us might have been exposed to it. I say it's a song because it is on a rhythm, but I don't know if it follows the real notes and other uh, things that are ascribed to the development of music. And the song is called The Sunscreen. I'm not sure how many persons know that song. But there's some lines in the song which is so important and has struck a chord with me, and I've always reverted to this song in many occasions. And there is a part in the song that says, um, we must accept the inalienable truth. And that is what this conversation about this morning. What is that truth? And the truth is, as I know Dickie Crawford would say many times, is that this industry has been given a very bad rap for all these years. In 1937, as you know, on August the 2nd, President Roosevelt signed into law to ban this product, marijuana, ganja, cannabis, that has been used and was used for centuries, either amongst the Indians or other indigenous groups right across the world, who had, based on their historical nature, would have found immense truth in the use of this product. In 1961, the UN placed this product on the most dangerous level, level 4. And therefore, it placed into motion all that has transpired all these years about this particular product called ganja. So, what is that truth? The truth is that they all got it wrong. And it's time that we have that candid conversation that they all got it wrong. And they ignored the indigenous user of this for all these years. And that is the best result one can get from any experiment, the real life experimental use. And therefore, the candid conversation is that they got it wrong. Recently, the UN would have realized and have come to their senses, my, my word, that they have now placed it on Schedule 1, still on the list of prohibited substance. It has only moved from Schedule 4 to Schedule 1. And we hope that the time will come when it's be removed completely from the schedule. We see internationally that the United States in particular, who is always held up in most cases as a dominant business partner in the world with a dominant language of English, that has always set the stage in most cases for how the world moves. And therefore, that event in 1937 has set off a series of prohibitions and has stifled the development of a product that meant so much to so many people. In the case of Jamaica, the Rastafarian were persecuted literally for using the substance. Many other local, simple people within Jamaica utilize it for various different solutions to ailments. And we saw work culminated in Lockhart and West, the development of asthma that is used for asthma, and Canasol that is used for glaucoma. And that was research done a long time ago with limited knowledge and limited money and limited expertise. Yet still, we could have developed those two important products that is still used up to today. We would have seen local inhabitants use ganja, whether on its own or instilled and infused in other things for ailments such as sprains and aches. And we saw in recent times that might have catapulted the discussion and the wave that is sweeping across the United States in particular when CNN Sanjay Gupta did the series on cannabis and highlighted the tremendous benefit of the medicinal aspect of this plant for ailments that were not treated or could not be treated properly by conventional medicine. What a way to have come and to have started a new conversation. We have seen now in the United States, almost all states have now not only decriminalized, but have legalized even recreational use of the product. Because I still believe that persons have the right to choose. And therefore, having understand that liberty and civil liberty is important, then we see where the states are homing up in droves for the use of this product. We have also seen in recent times, not for the first time, it's the second time around, where the US House of Representatives have voted overwhelmingly in this round as it relates to the Safe Banking Act, because that has been, Madam Chair, Madam CEO, the bugbearer why we cannot develop or why there's a hindrance to develop this multi-billion-dollar industry as we would like to see, because of the restriction at the federal level of banking. Therefore, when the House passed it with a significant majority, and it now is left to go to the Senate, where we believe that possibly in August or thereabout, when it is debated or once it's debated, the Senate will also pass it. Because More Republicans are now supporting it than ever before. And that's the reason why it was voted overwhelmingly in the House. And even with a 50-50 split in the Senate, the Vice President has signaled her intention many times by co sponsoring other related cannabis related bills that once it comes there, then possibly it will be signed. And then we say it's all over at that stage. So it's important for us to understand in this conversation not only the genesis, but where are we going? And in Jamaica in particular, we are so hamstrung by the legislation that we have here. The interim cannabis legislation that we have here, it's a disincentive, complete disincentive, and requires a complete rework of what it is. And with the 2015 passage, we are now set in the ministry under Minister Shaw, myself and the team at the ministry, to work assiduously to change this, because if we do not change it and everywhere opens up apart from us, we're going to be completely left behind, and we will not, with all the accreditation and conformity assessment, we will not participate adequately in this multi-billion-dollar industry. So we are working locally on how quickly can we change the regulations as we have it. But what I would say to our members in the community, Jason and others, that we are seized of the importance of taking a different road. We're also seized of the importance of our international obligations, because Jamaica still needs to operate as a part of the world stage. We cannot operate in a vacuum. And therefore, these international obligations that we have already signed on to still mean something for the credibility of Jamaica. And therefore, it's important now as how we walk through the raindrops, because that's what it's going to take for us to be a part of that multi-billion-dollar industry. We have to find the avenues. And Chairman Flynn is online, and he knows that the minister and myself has tasked him and the board with a completely new direction, a completely new direction. And we will work with the team at CLA to ensure that they have gotten a bad rap many times, but they are only doing their job. Their job is a regulator. It is for us here at the ministry to be the promoter, and therefore we will develop regulations that the CLA will regulate, because that is their duty. And they are given, as I said, a bad rap many times. But I will come to their defense to say that they are only acting on what they have been asked to act on. And the fault is not necessarily there. So back to our conversation about the inalienable truth. That is the truth. That we have to know, seize of the importance, but also accepts the fact that we are possibly part of the hindrances that we have found ourselves in now. Again, to the defense of when the regulations was enacted in 2015. 2015 was a different time than now. Completely different time than now. Jamaica was always seen as a part of almost a pariah state when it comes to this particular plant. We hear about the raids and the shipments and the all negative thoughts and negative press about Jamaica and this particular product. So the CLA in 2015 had to move cautiously in how they roll out this new industry. And therefore, I would humbly say that the time in 2015, the regulations might have been appropriate then. But the world is moving very fast at the speed of light as far as the opening of this industry is concerned. And therefore, we have to now change gear so that we can catch our tail along this wind. The JANAC has placed and positioned themselves very well. Because, Madam C, if you have an opportunity to visit some of these manufacturing facilities and these farms that are existing in Jamaica under the jurisdiction of a CLA, you'd have been amazed at the conformity that is there and the quality of the infrastructure that is present in those labs that will beat any first world lab anywhere in the world. There's one particular machine, the HPLC machine, that, as you know, can identify even the minute quantity of an agent in something, and therefore the ability of labs and lab services to test what is in the plants that people are going to get is critical. And therefore, your assessment and your validation and conformity will just increase the ability of the products from Jamaica to say, yes, we are ready for the world stage, and therefore we can compete worldwide. So there's a lot of work to be done, and the minister's favorite saying, a lot of work to be done. But we are seized with that importance because Jamaica needs to benefit. Jamaica's name is a great name, not only in sport and reggae music, but also in the production and the use of this particular plant. How we position ourselves will make us able to access the multi-billion-dollar industry. And one more thing before I close. It is important that the industry be open up. There's no doubt about that. By opening up the industry in a very controlled manner, in a very scientific manner, will eventually eliminate illicit trade. Yes, eliminate that illicit trade. Because person will not seek to produce in substandard condition plants which they do not know the constituents for consumption to the population. We understand as a member of the medical community, there are great dangers in the psychoactive aspect of the plant. So the truth is that we have to accept that as well. And therefore, what we do and how we do and why we do and how do we position ourselves will make it not only safe for our consumption, whether locally or otherwise, but our rightful place. Jamaica, land we love, a land of opportunities and greatness. And therefore, we can tap into this multi-billion-dollar industry that will mean immense revenue for government through taxes, especially now during the pandemic, and the utilization of those taxes for the benefit of all Jamaica. Thank you very much. Good morning.
On March 20, 2015, the Dangerous Drugs Amendment Act came into effect, following passage in the Jamaican Senate a month earlier. To many, it signaled the start of significant opportunities for the local economy, export earnings, foreign direct investments, and growth in cannabis tourism. In today's discussion, 6 years on, we're asking, where does Jamaica stand at this time? The role of accreditation, and what steps have we been taking to build and maintain a viable market regime? That's our live discussion, Candid Conversations on Cannabis, Jamaica's place in the multi-billion-dollar growth industry. Good morning again and welcome. We are now in our discussion segment. Well, listen, the face you were supposed to be seeing is Amashika Lorne, but unfortunately, she had a matter that quite at an emergency she had to attend to. So I'll be filling in this morning for you on this our discussion segment surrounding Jamaica's cannabis industry. And I love the way that our minister has really set the platform for us to really understand the government's direction insofar as the cannabis industry is concerned. This discussion, as I mentioned earlier, is being brought to you in observance of World Accreditation Day, as the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation believes in the importance of quality. And certainly we are prepared to ensure that all is in place for various conformity assessment bodies to be able to produce and to put forward a quality product in this value chain. Now, for this discussion, we have with us Ms. Diane Edwards. Now, Diane Edwards is the president of the Jamaica Promotions Corporation's JAMPRO. She's also joined by Jason Henzel, who is vice president of the private sector organization of Jamaica. We also have with us, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Dickey Crawford, who is president of the Ganja Growers and Producers Association of Jamaica, and Levon Flynn. Levon Flynn rounds out our panel as chairman of the Cannabis Licensing Authority, which was established under Jamaica's Dangerous Drugs Amendment Act to regulate Jamaica's legal ganja and hemp industries. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for joining us, and thank you to all members of the team who has put this discussion together, and certainly persons joining on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Now, Dwayne McKenzie, who is the president and co-founder of Epican Jamaica, the first medical marijuana dispensary in Jamaica, was quoted in a 2017 Gleaner article as saying, quote, "Cannabis is undoubtedly Jamaica's most relevant product." As the head of Jampro, Diane Edwards, what are your views?
Well, good morning, everyone. And yes, celebrations for World Accreditation Day. Happy to be here. Yes, we think that cannabis has immense potential. If we look at the international market, which is really right now led by the US, a 30 billion US dollar market in 2020. And I think that COVID and the whole period we are just living through, and we haven't emerged from it yet, is going to make people more and more focused on natural products and hence healthcare. So I think those are two critical points that cannabis boxes that cannabis ticks, because natural products, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, everybody is looking for natural remedies, and cannabis ticks that box. And I think that the real opportunity for us is to leverage Jamaica's brand and take cannabis to the world. So yes, we are fully in support of the growth of this.
Okay, but not the most, as Mr. McKenzie would have said, the most relevant product.
Well, I think the trouble is Jamaica has a lot of opportunity. So you can argue which is the most relevant product, and how are you going to judge that? Is that by the size of the market? Is that by the potential we think we have? There are a number of ways to judge the most relevant product. So what I would say basically is that there is tremendous potential in this industry, but as I always stress, it is a science-based industry, and that's exactly where accreditation comes in, because we can't do this on a purely artisanal basis. We have to have the proper laboratories, accredited laboratories that can certify what people are taking into their body. And I think with coronavirus, people are much more aware now of what they are taking into their bodies, and that's why we have to be even more scientific in our approach to this industry.
Absolutely, and we're going to be getting into that. But I want to ask Levon Flynn. Levon Flynn, as the chairman of the Cannabis Licensing Authority, to just set the platform for us and give us a sense of what the position is today, the government's position certainly regarding the usage of marijuana, medical marijuana certainly, within the local context. What does the law say regarding marijuana use?
Hi, morning, everyone. So in 2015, when the law was initially established, it allowed for some key things. It allowed for an individual to have up to 2 ounces of ganja without being prosecuted. It allowed for each home to have up to 5 plants. And importantly, it established the Cannabis Licensing Authority, the governing body, which is responsible for regulating the industry, accepting and processing licenses, for monitoring those licensees, and also for enforcing the regulations. So
Right.
that's the platform with which the industry started.
Right. And I know
When
in 2019, there was a lot of discussion regarding the establishment of export regulations insofar as cannabis is concerned. Could you comment for us on what has happened since then? Are we now in a position and prepared with export regulations to be able to function at an international level within the cannabis industry?
Well, I'm happy to announce the export regulations is at the very final stages before promulgation. I believe it is now with the AGC, the Attorney General's chambers, and only awaits, I believe, my signature then onto cabinet before it's gazetted. So the export regulations are almost complete. Notwithstanding, export has been very active. I believe we've processed around 26 exports since 2019. So what we have been doing is issuing no objection letters. So all licensees, once they receive an import permit from the receiving country and they meet all the local requirements, we have been issuing no objection letters, which allow licensees to export both ganja flower and ganja oil. And when
Right.
we have the regulations on board now, that will further solidify our export industry.
And certainly, Mr. Hensel, Jason Hensel, as we know, is the vice president of the private sector organization in Jamaica. What have you been seeing among entities today who are perhaps in the industry, wanting to enter the industry? Do you find that there is a general acceptance with what currently obtains? What has your assessment been working through the PSOJ?
I would say thank you for having me on the program. I would say that there is an excitement about the sector generally, particularly with more and more states becoming recreationally legal in America and with the Safe Banking Act. I would also say that Minister Norman Dunn has also added a new level of energy and interest coming from a medical background. And of course, there's a tremendous amount of confidence behind Levon Flynn as chairman because he also has some experience in this space. So I would say there's a huge level of excitement. And we estimate that there's somewhere between 50 to 75 million US dollars has been invested in this space. And it is still early days in that a lot of those companies have not yet seen a return. So, when we're talking about having a candid conversation and we're talking about export regs, we're talking about opening up the deliveries so that persons can deliver. For instance, the ENDS program that the Prime Minister announced recently that's doing very well. In my mind and the PSOG's mind, we think that cannabis should be a part of that program because it's seen as an essential service to persons. So there are definitely things that need to be done. I believe that there's also a proposal from Chairman Flynn that persons could give their monthly sales figures. And in my mind, I think that's a very important tool so that we understand the size of the sales that's going on now. Because I would estimate that still probably about 80% of the cannabis sold in Jamaica is still from the illicit market. So hearing the comment from Minister Dunn that we should open the industry up so that the illicit market will go away or will be diluted. So it's probably the other way around, 80% legal and 20% illicit. I think is the right way to go. We really need to lower the barrier of entry. And I know that, again, Chairman Flynn has something to speak about with a transitional permit that is very exciting. But it's very good to see us having these type of conversations. And of course, accreditation is very important. So the export regs are important, the deliveries, and of course the stigma. Because I can tell you without fear or favor that even as a hotelier, I would say that the vast majority of the hotel owners in Jamaica are still not completely convinced that this is a safe space to get into. So the more accreditation that we
We're
get,
gonna get right.
the more
We're gonna
accreditation
get
that
to
we
that.
have is the more that stigma will go away.
Will go away. Absolutely. And there's even the discussion surrounding banking regulations insofar as persons in this industry is concerned. And we're going to be talking about that. But I just wanted to, in setting the platform, also hear from Richard Dickey Crawford, president of the Ganja Growers and Producers Association. Sir, I wonder what are your assessments? What have your assessments been with regards to the accessibility for persons? We know that the ministry has been doing quite a bit to ensure that persons are able to get access and that they are able to move from the illicit area into a regularized industry. What have your assessment been of traditional ganja farmers, among others, entering into the industry?
Well, first of all, good morning to everyone. It's a great pleasure to listen to
Okay.
the discussion so far. And certainly, I feel happy that I can say that Dr. Dunn has made a tremendous presentation here this morning. Candid conversation on the topic of cannabis ganja in Jamaica. The, all what he said is accurate. We have been in dialogue with him from he was appointed and other members of the ministry. And what is coming out from his presentation with the backing of the ministry, which is going to have to play a very important role, the lead ministry. When you think of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, every branch of that ministry holds the key to the development of a real serious agro industry for this country and specifically for the herbs, the spices, and ganja. So there's no denying that. And I really congratulate and I'm happy to hear from um, Dr. Dunn how he put this forward. Um, the Ganja Growers and Producers Association of Jamaica had already called, yes, for the opening up of the industry. We recognize all the weaknesses. We got a lot of flack on the street. People were saying to us, boy, you guys don't know what you're doing. Why you're not doing anything better? But Dr. Dunn's and our own members realized that the regulations were limited. They limited our activity. And that is a great big thrust that must take place now. We must be able to open up the industry and to come with modern legislative arrangements. And another great surprise this morning, and happily, is to understand what Janak is all about. I mean, to be very frank with you, I wasn't aware of the importance of this organization and what it can do and will have to do for the future. There are many other
And that's
organizations.
conversation. Absolutely, sir.
And basically, our look at this point in time, we're looking at a national coalition for the development of the ganja industry. And it's a three-prong or four-prong coalition. One, the first and most important aspect of it is that all indigenous groups and farmers, business persons, everybody who's interested in growing ganja and who has the right to grow it to a certain extent, but to be approached by the ministry, particularly, as Dr. Donald said, um, and to put together all business associations, including, of course, the PSOJ and the JMA. We recognize because we have been in discussion with members of the PSOJ, the JMA, and other business persons who would have loved to have invested in ganja, but could not because the banking regulations would mean that they could shut down their companies. So that is something that we have to deal with. I think we're expecting that to go through this year. The second major important aspect of it is research and development. And Janak is putting on this process and this discussion, this candid conversation this morning, which is very key. The next most important thing after recruiting and opening the doors for the farmers to come in is then now research and development into all aspects of the business. That is without doubt. And then now that produces from that the quality of the substances that have been produced. We also need to recognize, this thing is even wider than we think. We have farmers who are not yet involved. Lavon is telling us that he's about ready now. I understand you're ready with the new development policy to bring in farmers. We also have a significant group of people in this country which we do not know much about or underrate, the herbalists, the all of these people who are scientists, they use their own remedies, and they are a multi-million-dollar industry by themselves, but they are also scared and afraid, and they must be pulled into the arena. So
But let me
this
ask, let me
this is
let me
very important. So once we
absolutely.
open it and get in the production in place, then the R&D, then the distribution and the marketing and export follows. If we have no ganja, we have no ganja to export.
Certainly, but let me just backtrack a bit to ask Mr. Flynn, what are the eligibility requirements for persons who want to get into the industry, whether it be as a cultivator, as a transporter, and so on? What are those eligibility requirements? And if you could just comment for me in the same breath on the different types of licenses that are available.
Sure. So there are 5 key licenses. There's a cultivator's license, there's a processing license, there's a retail license, and there's also a research and development license. The criteria for each vary, but some of the basic things are that first, the majority of the companies or the licensing company must be majority owned by Jamaicans, so over 50%. The ratio, most of the licenses use is 51% Jamaican owned, 49% internationally owned. The person's reputation must be of a good standard as well, so they must be considered fit for purpose. And there's a host of other eligibility criteria that is required. What I would use to better set the context, though, is the lens through which we see the industry, and from the local conversation, that all the legalization and decriminalization that's happening around the world, what is primarily driving it is that the cannabis industry is seen as an economic enabler. And I think a deeper appreciation for that is needed in Jamaica. So, for example, the biggest cannabis market in the world is California, the US state of California. Between 2018 and 2020, that state collected almost $1 billion in taxes. New York, which is now progressing its cannabis legalization laws, is expected to become the second biggest market in the US, and they're expecting around $350 million in taxes. So we have to appreciate that what the economic potential is for the industry, but there are certain things that we have to do locally in order for us to reach that status. And Dr. Dunn touched on a couple of them. He spoke earlier of the regulations. The regulations, as is now, they were exactly what the country needed in 2015, 2016. We needed to establish a strong regulatory framework, and we needed to establish the local governing body. I think we've done a tremendous job in setting the foundation for that. But the industry is very different now from when it was 2015. Even 2 years ago, the industry is completely different. The industry is rapidly evolving, and our laws have to keep pace. Otherwise, we are on the back foot, and we're not best positioned to be able to create the opportunities, to maximize the opportunities that exist. So we do need updated regulations. We also need to, what I like to call, liberalize the market. So we need to open up the market. And I don't mean adult use recreation, but liberalize the market within a medicinal, scientific, and therapeutic framework. So specifically, we need to get to a place where we're producing more cannabis byproducts. So nutraceutical pills, tinctures, CBD water, it varies. And we need to develop this sector where we have these food items that can be infused with CBD along with THC, because persons sometimes tend to think that THC is not medicinal. THC is very medicinal. Some would argue more medicinal than CBD. and there's the science to back it. So we need to open up the market, and what is needed now is to develop the right policies and framework that can guide investors, can guide licensees, can guide our local herbalists, that can guide our local farmers, so they can then start producing these byproducts. And this is where the accreditation aspect comes in, where we have to be able to properly test for the cleanliness of the products and the quality of the products. So by cleanliness, I mean we have to ensure agricultural product residue in it. There are no microbes in it. There's no heavy metals in the product. And by quality, we have to know what the cannabinoid and the terpenoid profile is. So what percentage of CBD, THCs, CBG is in each plant, and what terpenes are in there. Once we have a good understanding of the cannabinoid and the terpenoid profile, then that puts the trained medical practitioner in an advantageous position to know how to recommend dosage and medicinal recommendations based on the ailment he's treating, whether it's for nausea, whether it's for treating menstrual cramps, whatever it is. But we need to get to that place where we're expanding the market and we're using accreditation of the different processes to strengthen the local market, to strengthen the reputation, to strengthen consumer confidence, and very importantly as well, to strengthen the confidence in the international market in our local products when we look to expand the export market.
Because there is a vast market, is there not, Levon Flynn, or for persons who would want this particular product, who would want to engage with the market. But there are also technical barriers that would restrict products from getting in if they do not meet those requirements, that conformity. So certainly, to the extent that we are able to, through accreditation, prepare our products for market, then we are in a better space. And I know Jampro has certainly been doing quite a lot insofar as ensuring that persons are aware of Jamaican products and produce coming from the island. I wonder, Miss Edwards, if you could just speak to us a little bit with regards to the market generally for cannabis, based on what your assessments have been, what have you been seeing with regards to the demand for cannabis products coming out of Jamaica?
Thank you. Yes, we really see, as I was saying before, that there is a real opportunity for nutraceuticals and products that can ensure the quality and the purity that Chairman Flynn was speaking about. I think we have to see cannabis like any other export product. So for food products, you have to have your hazard and critical point control. You have to have those regulations and those processes in place, because the market does not accept your product unless you have a certain level of certification and qualification. So we think that is critical, and we have to start to look at development as any export product. So what we see in the market is more and more applications, expanded applications for CBD and THC-based products. They're used in treatment of a range of medical ailments, such as epilepsy, children who have seizures. There's been a lot of talk about Charlotte's Web and various other strains. Mr. Dunn mentioned asthma salt and Canasol. There are treatments for asthma. There are a range of treatments that are looking for new opportunities. People are looking for, how do we treat ourselves without getting addicted to drugs that are artificially created? People want more natural. So we are seeing big trends towards that in the industry internationally. We certainly see in Germany and Switzerland, we see a demand for Jamaican products, and we are seeing companies asking for the product in those markets. Jamaica has a brand and has a reputation and has a long history, as you know, in this area. So we see real opportunity there. We also see demand for wellness and rehabilitation centers. So people want to come here and have their cannabis vacation their wellness vacation infused with cannabis products. So we have a real opportunity to create wellness results based on cannabis therapies, to develop the full research and development, new tinctures, new products, new paraphernalia, new ways of consuming. The market is really wide open. And I think the generation that we are seeing now, millennials coming really into the market with more purchasing power, I think we're going to see more and more interest in these kind of products.
And speaking about millennials, well, I'm not sure if he's a millennial, but I have a question here from Dale on Facebook. He's asking, what about banks accepting funds from the industry? Any update? I'd mentioned that earlier. I just wondered who would be able to give me a comment on that, because there has been some restriction, has there not? Insofar as banks interfacing with persons in the industry because of international regulations insofar as the industry is concerned. I know, for example, that the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, the Honorable Audley Shaw, has been doing some work insofar as our banks are concerned in that strain. Has there been any updates, as Dale has been asking?
Well, let
Let's
me,
live on.
sorry.
Sure, I can take that one. Well, the short answer is um, that our hands really are tied as it relates to the banking sector. And the simple reason is that because most of our local banks do corresponding banking with US banks, and cannabis is still illegal at the federal level, the banks aren't going to take on the risk of doing business with a local cannabis company because they put their entire business at risk, potentially losing their banking license. The good news is, however, that I believe it was last month, I believe the Safe Banking Act was approved by the US House of Representatives. And that's a very, very positive step in the right direction because it points to it's another step closer to banks being able to facilitate investors in the cannabis industry. And most experts are of the opinion that once this happens in the US, Act along with the MORE Act, where cannabis can be made federally legal, then that will have a domino effect pretty much on the rest of the world, including Jamaica. So we can't do anything at the moment. But what I would encourage the business community to do is that let's not wait until the US achieves federal legalization before our financial institutions and business community start thinking of what role they can play in the cannabis industry. Most industry experts believe that federal legalization is possible within as early as 2 years. So I would encourage the business community to, in your annual meetings, in your quarterly meetings, in your board meetings, start thinking from now of what role can your institution play in helping to grow the local cannabis industry. Because as we've said, there's a lot of money in the industry. Jamaica has the strongest international brand in terms of what I like to call a ganja culture. So no other country in Jamaica has a strong ganja culture like Jamaica do in terms of where they think of the country. There is a strong tie with cannabis and the culture associated with it. Perhaps Netherlands is the only other similar country with their coffee shops. But the ganja culture in Jamaica is unique and it has significant brand equity. And in the business world, brand equity translates to dollars, to profits. So the business community start thinking about what role you can play in helping to facilitate the growth of the industry because Jamaica has something really special and it's going to require strong collaboration for us to truly achieve the potential that is possible.
Well, Ensambi Jaja, who is, many of you may know her, she's a noted quality management professional. She says our own Rastafarians, I think she's listening on Instagram, have been trying for decades to enlighten us. For decades, they got it right. Bob said, "Time alone will tell." All right, so let's move now. Let's move now to. I want to ask Mr. Hensel. You know, there have been some discussions in the press with regards to international investors, and perhaps Diane can come in on this one as well. Coming into the island, and recently we saw persons such as, well, entities such as Afri and Aurora and Green Organic Dutchman leaving. There was some, we want to just dispel many of the assumptions that persons have been making insofar as the ease with which persons can do business in the cannabis industry in Jamaica, because there have been talks about the fact that it was because it was so restricted why these entities left. But we know otherwise, and perhaps Miss Edwards and as well Mr. Jason Hensel could comment on that. How easy is it for international investors to do business in this industry here in Jamaica?
Jason, you want to go first?
Or Jason? Okay.
Well, the first thing I want, okay, sure. And I do want to say that sometimes JamPro doesn't get the umbrella and the support of JamPro, and I wanted to say that. Some foreign investors are pleased and are looking at the long game. And the truth of the matter is that some of them overinvested in the beginning when there was all this hype and companies were overvalued and there was a lot of speculation. But you also have to look at, there's facts that some international investors actually made out quite well, and local investors, for instance, a sale of 49% of Marigold in the early days for 145 million US dollars, right? So some persons have done well, but a lot of persons overinvested in the early days. And the truth of the matter is that it's a young industry for Jamaica. And I think that a lot of those entities which were thinking that they could have exported everything very quickly went for tier 3 licenses, very, very large facilities. And they probably didn't look at the importance of first nurturing the local market. And I think the local market is very, very important.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that surrounds the cannabis industry, and I think the accreditation can go a far way in doing that. So the foreign investors who are looking long-term, Darren, I believe will be very pleased with their investment. I personally am in support of the 51% Jamaican ownership in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there are some people who are not comfortable with it, but I think for the most part, persons are, and they're respectful of that. So I believe that long-term, the international investors and the local investors will do very well. But this is a 3 to 5 year projection.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hensel was breaking up in that last bit. Perhaps, Diane, if you'd want to elaborate on the points that he was making related to the ease of doing business. Mr. Hensel, you were just breaking up a little bit. We never heard the last bit. Could you just summarize that last bit for us? You were breaking up a bit.
No, I was saying, in my personal estimation, I think it's another probably 3 to 5 years before the industry matures to the point where persons are going to be making a return on their investment, right? So this is a long-term strategy, not short-term, that was originally anticipated by persons who overinvested in their tier 3 licenses and they were only looking at the export opportunity, right? We have to build our local industry first. We have to work on how the cannabis industry can be looked at by RADA and the Ministry of Agriculture as not being separate, but also benefiting from the incentives on the RADA and being a farm. But I think long-term, local and foreign investors will do very well with this industry once they have the right approach.
I fully agree with what is saying. I think some people rushed into the industry thinking that the legislation and the regulations would be in place than they were. I think people thought that Canada, for instance, would open up real quick and that they could jump in and grow and export almost immediately. They underestimated the length of time it would take for the regulations to be put in place for a new industry, how they would be able to export in a very short time. So there was, I think, business overinvestment of enthusiasm at the beginning. And like many situations like this, you spend a lot of capital, you burn through it, and then there's a course correction. And some of those companies have to do course correction. So I think it's not so much a question of the ease of doing business in Jamaica, because I think we are continually working on the ease of doing business in Jamaica. And doing cannabis business is similar to doing any business. It's a business. You've got to take it as a business. So we need to do more in terms of the ease of doing business, and we have a whole program reform of the business environment in Jamaica. But I agree with Jason that the opportunities will evolve as we change and adapt and modify the situation, take advantage of the new situation and the evolving international situation, because we need to be ready for when that federal approval comes in the US. It is really critical to the banking sector taking notice of this industry. We tried over 2 years ago to engage with the banking sector in Jamaica. We spoke to the Bankers Association, the Bank of Jamaica. We had a number of meetings, but the situation was not right at that time. And I'm hoping that, as Chairman Finn said, is a growing awareness of the potential of this industry, and that people will start, the banking sector will start to take it seriously. I think the PSOJ play and the CLA can play a big role in getting this industry taken seriously at the banking sector. I think that's critical to moving forward. I think we have some companies here that are very realistic, international companies that are realistic and have sown the seeds and put down the basis for growth. So I think the industry will move forward. There will be casualties along the way. Industry will move forward.
What should potential
Darren, I think it's also
okay, go ahead.
No, I think it's important to note, Darren, that Chairman Flynn said earlier that 26 exports were granted, that all of those exports were for research and development. We haven't yet done a commercial export. And I think the CLA and the Ministry of Health have granted everyone who has come to them with that request. None of them have been blocked. But what we do have to take into consideration is that most countries abroad are not open to importing cannabis at this point. You know, Canada wants to protect their industry. America is going to want to protect their industry. I think the only countries that are open to it at this point are Germany. And Portugal, Switzerland, and maybe one or two others. So, you know, we and Switzerland. So we do have to be realistic, and Switzerland. So we do have to be realistic about that as well. So it's not that yes, we want export regs, but that has not held up exports. It's the countries abroad who want to protect their own borders and their own industries, which have not allowed the commercial importation of our medical cannabis.
But what is our
advantage? And just real quick, sorry, Darren, just to add for a point of clarification on what Jason said. You made a very good point, and I'm happy to say that we had a recent shipment to Germany, a very sizable amount, and it was exactly that for resale in pharmacies in Germany. It was ganja buds, ganja flower, being marketed and as original organic Jamaican ganja that is for commercial use. So we are slowly breaking that barrier and heading in that direction.
Yeah, I want to add to that as quickly as possible.
That's a very positive development.
Very positive development. You see, because one of our outstanding growers, a lady, an activist, has said to us that what the world wants from Jamaica are the flowers, right, Levon?
Yes, correct.
Jamaica has a history, it has a reputation. We produce the best ganja in the world. Basically, we're not necessarily having to prove that to everybody, but that is where we are rated. And that's why people rushed here. And as Diane and Jason said, yes, they thought it was just going to be put it in the ground easily and everything is going to run properly and financially secure. But also, the other thing is that with the growing ganja industry in the world, Jason is right. Canada, for example, locked off all of its imports from or possible importations from Jamaica. Everybody wants to do it for themselves now because the market talks about billions and billions. What Jamaica has to do in opening up the industry is to ensure that we have a product or products that are going to take to the market. First of all, we have our own Jamaican market to contend with. I mean, this country got popular. Tourism became a major industry in this country, frankly, candidly speaking, because of ganja and music. I worked with Jason's father in those early days. And I'm telling you, that is where the history of Jamaica comes from, and the movies that were made, and the Bob Marley and all of that. So we have a, a foundation to have selective and competitive advantage in things that we do, which we must. The whole thing about spas in hotels was inspired from some of the work done by the traditional farmers and people in Jamaica. So let's be sure of that. And also, another point that this lady made to me was that the processing is extremely expensive. Jamaica does not have the low level of electricity, for example, that will facilitate processing at high levels. So it is to our advantage to do what we do. She says, remember the fact Jamaica is a THC and a wellness country, and they put these things out there in the market for people coming in and for people who want to import it. We can't export to people who are not prepared to buy from us. And the last point, of course, that I think I should say something on is what everybody has said. Um, the market, for example, the whole issue of banking is a problem not only with ganja, it's a problem for small and medium enterprise people. The small businessman goes through havoc trying to get a loan in this country to promote his business. So we have to take another look at this whole thing. What are our real serious products that need financing? And the banks and the PSOJ need to open up the situation as well, not just the CLA to open the regulations, but the financial institute, the financial people in Jamaica need to say, okay, if we want to make some good money and we want to be involved and we have the groundwork there, look at Appleton, for example. Once upon a time, we discarded Appleton rum. Today, Appleton is the biggest selling, one of the biggest selling rums in the world. Amazing.
And
Just pay
Diane was
attention to what you really have and perfect it, and that will take you.
Darren,
go
Yeah,
ahead.
can
Darren,
I just
I'll give
can
you an
I just comment
example.
on that 1 minute? Sorry, Jason, just wanted to comment on one thing. Not only because I used to work at Amazon, that's so big, but what it did teach me is the importance of branding. And I think where we often miss the boat in Jamaica is we supply commodities and we don't own the brand, we don't own the intellectual property, we
Correct.
don't go to the consumer level. So it's fine and dandy exporting flowers and buds and oils and tinctures. That's nice. But if you really want to make money, we need to be building a cannabis brand that is as big as Appleton. And that's where it can go, because that's when people will pay more money because they know your brand, they understand the promise, they understand the background, it's brand equity, all these good things. And they'll buy into that and they'll pay more money. That's why you pay more money a branded bag, handbag, or rather than, another bag, or you pay more money for an Appleton Estate 21-year-old than you pay for Appleton Special, now Kingston 62. So the point is that we need to get together, and we don't have a good history of this in Jamaica, develop brands and that can command the respect and greater value in market.
I was looking, Diane, the export strategy, there's a paper that you had written on it where you were emphasizing how countries such as Italy are known for their leather, countries such as Germany for their automation and so on, because they have mastered branding. So, of course, a lot of persons know about Jamaica with its marijuana. You know, what can we know and what should we now be doing to ensure that that brand is stayed in the minds of people globally so that they would want to interact, do more business with us. But of course, we can't do the business if we're not producing as we ought. Jason, you were making a point.
I'm going to show you how powerful the Jamaican brand is and how much of a disadvantage that we are because of the banking. A company, let us say, out of California, could charge a group of, let us say, 10 people, $1,000 each, to come to Jamaica and to tour legal and possibly illegal cannabis farms. Let's say legal. However, our own banks will not facilitate a cannabis tour locally because that would be seen as illegal, right? So just look at how powerful that would be. That persons would be willing to come to Jamaica, pay $1,000 or a premium to go to 5 or 6 farms, go to the dispensaries, right? And they make a viable business out of that. But yet us right here in Jamaica can't do that. So I agree with Dan and Levon. We need to just keep advocating, keep lobbying through the PSOJ, JAMPRO, the CLA. All of us need to keep pushing the Growers Association. And I believe that the change will eventually come. I really do believe that.
And I'm very happy to hear that as we close. And perhaps I could just get some closing comments from us. We're hitting 10:30. I see a representative from TVJ. They need to connect properly because they're currently not connected as they ought to. So if you just log out and log back in for the question and answer. If I could just get some closing comments from each of you regarding the state of our cannabis industry, and if you could just underscore the importance of accreditation for the quality of these products to be at the optimum in those closing remarks. I would want to start with Levon Flynn, chairman of the CLA.
Thank you, Darren, and thanks to Janak for facilitating this very important and lively discussion. It is needed, and it's also timely as well, because I certainly believe that I feel it within my bones that we're just about on that cusp of making that paradigm shift within the local industry, given the local context, given the international context as well. I feel that we're there. So I just want to touch on a couple of things. So first, earlier, Jason, you mentioned about the ENDS program and the delivery. When the ENDS program first came out, that's something we did explore. But because cannabis is a medicinal product, it has to be, there's a transport license that's needed. So using ENDS would not be possible, unfortunately. But suffice it to say that the CLA is actively making amendments to the regulations as it relates to the delivery. During the heart of the pandemic last year, we made provisions for online sales, and we recognize that online sales need to be complemented by delivery. So we have submitted some amendments to the regulations to our parent ministry, and those are being processed. In terms of other things that the CLA is currently actively doing, Jason, you made mention earlier of the cultivator's transitional permit. And I'll just give a brief overview of what this is. This is essentially the route or the passageway for these small farmers to have an easier entry into the cannabis industry. So essentially what it does, it reduces the licensing fees by 50%, and it has less requirements, still sufficient, but less requirement as it relates to infrastructure in terms of the amount of cameras that's needed, the height of the fence, and so on. And this is important to us because we have to embrace the responsibility of finding ways of how we include the small farmers in the industry. It is of vital importance. And what the CLA has devised is a cultivator's transitional permit, where we have these few barriers to entry for them, and they're given a 24 to 30-month period to achieve the status of a Tier 1 license. Within that period, the cultivator's transitional permit will also allow, if they so choose, to partner with a big licensee, so where we can have a satellite farm to mother farm concept, or some persons call it a co-op, where they can use their farms to plant cannabis and supply to the big licensees. We're also advancing the hemp regulation as well. There is a lot of concern about pollination. There are things in the policy that protects licensed ganja farmers. So, for example, the policy only allows for a maximum of 10 hemp farms throughout the island, and they can be to a licensed ganja farm is 5 miles, and they're only allowed to have feminized plants. So those things reduce the cross-pollination and help to protect our local ganja. I spoke earlier about the export permit as well. That is close to being finalized. And also, I also want to recognize the team at CLA. Dr. Dunn, Minister Dunn pointed to it earlier, that they work under tremendous pressure and with tremendous expectations. And we can understand the expectations that the investors and the stakeholders and the public have of the CLA. But I really want to give a shout out to the hardworking team at the CLA, because they really have a very onerous job and a huge responsibility of helping to guide this industry. And the final point I would like to say is that, again, we have to view the lens through what it primarily is, which is an economic enabler. It is under the Ministry of Industry, Investment, and Commerce for a specific reason. We need to appreciate that. We need to use that as our North Star to guide the direction of the industry, so that it can make sense for Jamaica and Jamaicans.
Thank you so much. Richard Crawford, closing comments.
I endorse a lot of what Levon just said. I think the critical issue here, one, is to build and rebuild the confidence and the association between the CLA and the farmers. There are many farmers, as you know, Levon, who wish to join and to plant and become legal growers of ganja, but they are unable to do so. And I believe that an active CLA, along with others of us in the business, going and having direct face-to-face meetings and reassuring the farmers, will go a very long way towards building the necessary productive base, because that's what is critical. It is from the productive base that we're going to get the finished product, and that product will be used in whatever ways the market dictates, and it is useful. So that is number one. Number two, I agree 100% that the business community in Jamaica, I've heard so many of my friends talking about agreeing with the whole thing about agro-industry being developed here in Jamaica. Let us really do it instead of just talking about it. There are very few areas left that can realize the kind of money and good products, good living, sensible, healthy living that can be achieved from an agro-industrial drive in Jamaica. So that includes, when we say that, we're talking about every form of agro-industry, ganja, vegetables, foods, whatever, water, very critical thing you raised there, Jason. Dan, I don't know if you heard the minister in Parliament yesterday. It was a very interesting development. At long last, they got a document in Parliament to protect the intellectual property rights of the Jamaican people. We have been producing the best products in the world, the best beaches in the world, the best music in the world, and yet still we don't have the biggest money in the banks in the world. And that is because we have not capitalized on that. Now is the time. This goes along, Levon, as you know, with everything. And Babsy Grains made a good point too. This situation means that Jamaica is in a position where we can even call on retroactively the money is out there that people have abused our products. So we're looking forward to an exciting time. We think all of us have to work together. Um, we have to assure the people education and knowledge over time will let those who are still not so sure. But I believe the resistance to the plant, to ganja, to Rasta has has declined tremendously, and it must decline more. We must put in a statement here that still there are too many Jamaicans who tend to take Rasta at not seriously enough, and that these people are those people over there. 100 years ago, it was a Rastafari movement that began the growth of ganja in this country, of a place called Pinnacle. And from
Thank,
that, we have that history, which we now build the next 100 years and make a lot of money out of ganja.
thank, thank you so much, Mr. Crawford. Mr. Henzel, and then we go to Diane for closing comments as we wind down this session. Mr.
I
Henzel?
want to agree with my colleague, Mr. Crawford. I believe that yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
No, I said I want to agree with my colleague, Mr. Crawford. This industry needs to first and foremostly honor the tradition and legacy of the Rastafarian movement. That goes without question. So I want to commend the CLA because so far to date they have granted 80 licenses, and I think there are 300 conditional and provisional licenses that have been approved, but haven't yet gone to their final state of the issuing of license. So I think that the appetite is there, and I want to thank the CLA for that. I really look forward to the delivery protocols coming out. I also look forward to edibles, and particularly the cultivators transitional permit to allow the smaller persons to come in. I think that we have a very, very bright future ahead of us, and particularly with the new chairman and Minister Dunn, and working along with the Growers Association, I really believe that we have a very, very bright future. But it's something that we need to be very strategic about. We can't take it for granted, and we need to work together on reducing the stigma that is in this space. Thank you very much for having us on today.
Here, here.
Miss Edwards, over to you.
Yes, so my final comments would be really four things. One is that Jampro was at the beginning of this industry. We kind of launched it, and it was like for baby, if you want. We're very proud of what the CLA has achieved to date and where we have come to. And I'm really also very pleased that Chairman Dr. Dunn, Minister Dunn, have taken on the need to evolve the regulations to look at the changing nature of the industry, because the regulations have been very stiff for Jamaicans, and I think that good intentions, regulations are not promoting the access of Jamaicans to the industry, and I think we have got to work on that. So very much commend the CLA on that. I think the ease of doing business, Jampro is committed to making it easier to do business in Jamaica. That includes cannabis business. So we want to be at the table to continue to help make it easier for people to access this lucrative industry and to have the conversation with banks and other stakeholders. We think that this really needs a full functional approach to its development. It needs to be a holistic approach to development. We have really a unique opportunity to develop a total value chain, which we used to say in Appleton, from grass to, well, it's from field to consumer. So we have an opportunity to develop a total value chain, which is really how you start growth in your economy and you manage the total value chain. And that value chain has to go from the field and from the involvement of RADA and the Ministry of Agriculture through to the R&D. And this is where JANAC's accreditation is critical. And so I really commend JANAC for this conversation this morning, because it is through the R&D, which we are not spending enough on, that we will come out with new products, and new products can then trademark and take to local market and international market. That's where we have unique opportunity, and we need to seize it, as I said, a multidisciplinary, cross-cultural, whole of government approach. And absolutely, the Rastafari has a strong role to play because they have been the custodians of the plant and of the heritage and the culture. But definitely, there has to be a role. And I think that we are on the cusp of huge new developments with the banking sector. 35 states in the US have decriminalized, legalized, or otherwise opened the doors. And we have to be ready to,
Mhm.
fly the gate when the gate is open, to run, fly through that gate when the gate is open. So I think we're in a good place, but we also have to move faster with amending the regulations as they are and really taking hold, as I said, of the total value chain industry. So thank you very much, Janak, for putting this on today. I think it's been a really great discussion. I've enjoyed interfacing with all my colleagues.
Yeah, I
Thank you
want to
Over
so
to you,
much.
extend my congratulations to Janak too. I'm pleasantly surprised, very happy about this meeting.
Absolutely. And Miss Shirley is online, and I'm sure she's listening. So we thank you for joining us, each and every one of you. Diane Edwards, President of JAMPRO. Richard Dickey Crawford, President of the Ganja Growers and Producers Association. Jason Hensel, Vice President of the PSOJ. And Levon Flynn, Chairman of the Cannabis Licensing Authority. I want to say thanks also to all persons joining in across our various social media pages. Tuning in also in the diaspora, there are persons in the region, as Janak is not just in Jamaica, you know. Jamaica is a global entity with international accreditation through the International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation, among others. So, again, thank you all for tuning in. On the 9th of this month will be World Accreditation Day, when we will be having yet another similar forum focused on this time on climate change, impacts on regional economic growth and development. So at this time, I'm going to be turning over to my colleague, Casita Green, who will now come with the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Darren. First, let me express sincerest gratitude to Minister Norman Dunn for his important contribution to today's candid conversation that has energized us to position ourselves to seize the opportunities and maximize them, the economic, social, and medicinal opportunities in the cannabis industry. To our chairman of the Accreditation Council, Mr. Simon Roberts, for delivering a warm welcome at the start of the event and for setting the tone for us all to understand the critical role that JANAC plays in providing internationally recognized accreditation services to the labs and the inspection bodies that would be operating in the cannabis industry. To our illustrious CEO, as Minister Dunn calls her, and of course we love her very dearly here at JANAC, for expertly guiding us on a remarkable journey exploring the critical linkages between the value of JANAC's accreditation services and also our role in increasing the global competitiveness of all industries and of course the cannabis industry as we're focusing on today. We are also extremely thankful for the great insights shared by our expert panelists. Mr. Levon Flynn, Chairman of the Cannabis Licensing Authority, Ms. Diane Edwards, President of the Jamaica Promotions Corporation, Mr. Jason Hensel, Vice President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, and of course, Mr. Richard Dickey Crawford, who is also one of my former lecturers at the UWI, President of the Ganja Growers and Producers Association of Jamaica. I am certain that the wealth of industry knowledge and expertise that you all added to this morning's discussion has equipped the business owners, the farmers, and others who wish to enter this market in providing them with greater clarity on how they may position themselves to tap into the growth potential of cannabis and of course helping to build brand Jamaica. And with a deep sense of appreciation, I extend special thanks to our moderator, Darren Miller, who is also the Dynamic Marketing and Communications Officer here at JANAC, for masterfully taking the reins and steering us through a compact, high-energy program. Thank you to our board of directors, our MIIC family that has been helping to host this event, our permanent secretary, Mrs. Sansa Bennett Templar, without whom we also would not have been able to share in this event and for making it the success that it is. To our local partners, the MIIC family, the other members who have been helping to work behind the scenes, our social media viewers, members of the media who were able to join, your presence and participation helped to make this event a huge success. Let us emerge on the other side of this pandemic, stronger, better, and prepared to embrace a culture of quality in Jamaica and to work together to build a stable and sustainable quality infrastructure. JANAC is here for you. We are ready to serve. Call us today and we can talk some more. Thank you all. Walk good.